But this is such a stark difference from how every other leader on this trip has interacted with Trump. Malaysia's throwing a concert for him, Korea's giving him crowns, everyone's kissing his ass. Then she comes in like his mom forced him to have a play date with a weird kid at school.
And they say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom. He's a dictator, he's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person.
If you thought things couldn't get any wilder, just wait. Because the moment the visuals went off the rails, the internet completely lost its mind. 1 second, it was normal politics, and the next, it looked like a rogue Whig was trying to escape, while two sharp-tongued truth snipers circled the scene with perfect precision. Desi Lydic and Navarro don't just follow the story, they tear it apart, peel back every layer, and leave behind a mix of brutal punchlines and uncomfortable facts that nobody can ignore.
I don't know if they understand how much it means for people who are on that wall of shame and how they consider it a wall of honor. It is a badge of honor anytime I get attacked by the White House. I love knowing that despite the fact—
I really do, I hate them. I cannot stand them. With all of the things we did with the tax cuts and rebuilding our military, not one Democrat voted for us. And I think we use it in the campaign that's coming up, the midterm.
Buckle up, because this is the kind of chaos you can't unsee. And hey, if you're enjoying this ride, hit that subscribe button. It actually helps more than you think. Everything kicks off like one of those moments that feels almost scripted by a bored universe trying to add some extra spice to an already ridiculous news cycle. A week that was barely holding itself together suddenly tips right over the edge into full-blown absurdity.
His troubles behind yesterday as he embarked on a 3-day state visit to the UK, his happy place where the king is in charge and vegetables are illegal. Of course, our relationship with Britain is not great right now. We're fighting over tariffs and Gaza and Ukraine, so there were a lot of issues to discuss on this visit.
And then out comes the same old bluster. The reheated outrage, the predictable chest thumping, and right on cue, the curtain slips just enough for everyone to catch a quick look at the messy machinery underneath.
Irrelevant. We are so relevant that we are on that wall of shame, because Whoopi was on it too.
Whoopi was on it for singing a song about the ballroom.
Yes. Remember when she broke into that song, "You Don't Own This"?
Yeah,
it was about the White House. And it's funny, so I mentioned, so Whoopi had no idea about this wall.
That's when the two most unlikely truth surgeons walk into the operating room with their gloves off and their sarcasm fully sanitized. Desi Lydic doesn't ease her way into a story. She charges straight in with that smirk that basically says she already knows how this ends. And honestly, she thinks the whole thing is hilarious.
The bigger question was what happened at that meeting. Trump said that China has been eating America's lunch for decades, and this was his chance to seal a major trade deal that finally makes things right.
President Trump back on Air Force One after his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, where the leaders agreed to a tentative
Every little gesture, every raised eyebrow makes it obvious that what they're breaking down isn't even politics anymore. It's full-blown performance art with a massive ego problem. It's the kind of show where confidence is loud, evidence barely exists, and reality keeps getting treated like an annoying heckler who needs to be kicked out. And then Navarro steps in with that calm, patient fury of someone who's watched the same movie way too many times to still be shocked, but not enough times to stop caring. No theatrics, no shouting, just a slow, steady teardown of a myth that's been held together with tape, noise, and way too many caps lock meltdowns.
This is not just about undocumented immigrants. When you are taking away temporary protective status, when you are putting legal permanent residents in detention and deporting them, when you are threatening U.S. citizens that you don't like, that you're going to take away their citizenship, naturalized ones, when you are talking about birthright citizenship.
The stuff they start peeling back isn't dramatic at first. It's actually pretty quiet, almost boring in how simple it is.
The same patterns repeated, the same promises recycled, the same outrage reheated and served again like leftovers nobody asked for. Yet somehow everyone keeps coming back for another bite. It's the same plot every time, the same outrage arc, the same self-appointed hero routine, just happening on a different day. It's like watching somebody play chess against themselves and still blame the board for cheating.
Trump was more excited about another aspect of the trip.
Well, my relationship is very good with the UK, and Charles, as you know, who's now king, is my friend.
Yes, Trump is like a brother to King Charles in that his actual brother is also in.
Anna, meanwhile, is over there calmly rearranging the chess pieces one by one. She doesn't rush anything. She lets the gaps in logic sit there and breathe, lets the contradictions hang in the air just long enough for everyone to realize they're not accidents, they're the blueprint. And brick by brick, that whole illusion of strategic genius starts looking a lot more like messy improvisation gone wrong. But the best part isn't even the information, it's the timing. Because right when the moment is perfect, the two of them basically reach over and unplug the fog machine. The smoke clears, the dramatic lighting dies out, and suddenly what's left on stage looks painfully human, defensive, exposed, and way smaller than it was ever advertised to be.
Heard us talking about it, and her reaction was like, and I'm not on it? Oh, I want to be on it. I want to be on the wall of shame. Please, put it on my obituary.
Don't
Anna
encourage.
Navarro was on Trump's White House wall of shame.
Oh, I have a quick correction. It's the Hall of Shame.
Oh, it's the hall?
Yeah, it's the Hall.
Well,
It's pretty hard to sell yourself as some unstoppable force when you keep tripping over your own press releases. And Desi absolutely revels in that irony. She leans into the fact that this so-called titan of dominance has been reduced to reacting instead of leading, a wannabe puppet master yanking at strings that aren't even connected anymore. Every joke she drops lands like a tiny pinprick in a balloon that once acted like it was indestructible. Then, Anna shifts the mood just enough to remind everyone that behind all this circus energy, there are real consequences, real people, real institutions, real damage that doesn't disappear just because the joke was sharp. Her calm, steady delivery turns the satire into something heavier, something that sticks with you after the laughter dies down. And honestly, the most brutal part of the whole breakdown is how unglamorous it is. There's no dramatic movie-style takedown, no emotional confession, just the slow, unavoidable realization that the myth has been running on fumes for a long, long time.
January? As in earlier this year, January? You went all the way to Asia for that? Okay, I think we can agree that meeting was a waste of time.
On the scale of from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12.
It's like the engine has been knocking for ages, the warning lights have been flashing nonstop, and everyone was too distracted by the fireworks painted on the hood to notice the smoke pouring out. Desi jumps in to point out how all that loud bravado feels a lot more like compensation than confidence now. How every dramatic declaration sounds less like real power and more like someone yelling into a dark room just to convince themselves they're not alone. The volume keeps climbing, but the actual substance keeps fading. And Anna brings it right back to the pattern we've seen over and over again. The predictable denials, the instant shift into grievance mode, the sudden "I'm the victim" routine coming from the same mouth that was bragging about dominance 2 seconds earlier. It's a script so overused, it practically comes with stage directions at this point. And Desi hits every beat perfectly, mocking the whole thing with the kind of precision that makes the repetition even more ridiculous.
The word he used to describe Tim Walz is a word that I've refused to use my entire life because I'm actually, as you all know, I have a brother who is severely intellectually disabled. That's Daniel, my big brother. He's 61 years old now. That's me when I was a little girl.
Anna drops in the uncomfortable historical context that keeps creeping into the conversation no matter how hard people try to ignore it.
The long trail of statements that just can't exist in the same reality. The constant rewriting of yesterday to save today. The truth, stubborn and completely unbothered, just sits there like a referee who doesn't care if anyone likes the rules, quietly keeping score. And what starts to become clear isn't the image of some master manipulator, but someone trapped by their own mythology. The legend always needs more feeding, bigger promises, louder enemies, crazier claims. But it also leaves no room to back down, no space for nuance, no exit that doesn't look like surrender. It's a costume that only gets tighter with every single performance.
And because Trump is so tight with the king, he made sure to let us know that he's getting the VIP treatment.
And it's the first time this has ever happened where somebody was honored twice, so it's a great honor. And this one's at Windsor. They've never used Windsor Castle for this before. They used Buckingham Palace. And I don't want to say one's better than the other, but they say Windsor Castle.
The real reveal isn't about one claim or one shocking moment. It's the weight of all of them stacked together. It's the sheer exhaustion of trying to match what's being promised with what's actually delivered. The slow fatigue settling over a public that's been on this rhetorical roller coaster for years with no clear end in sight. Anna, with this almost surgical patience, shows how the so-called chaos agent has ended up trapped in a completely predictable loop. Outrage feeds outrage. Accusations spark counter-accusations. A style fueled more by volume than vision, more by conflict than actual creation. And they don't point it out with a big sign or dramatic reveal. They just let the audience realize it naturally, like noticing you've been stuck watching the same episode on repeat.
Donald Trump is doing regime change in Venezuela. I think what he wants is to get the credit of getting rid of Maduro. So in order to do regime change in Venezuela, he has concocted, with the help of Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth.
Desi plays with the idea that this brand once prided itself on being anti-establishment, but now it feels like it exists just to protect its own spot inside the very establishment it used to rail against. The rebel built the fortress, and now the outsider is the one guarding the gates. The contradiction is so rich, it basically writes its own roast. Anna quietly reinforces that gap, showing how the posture shifted over time without ever admitting the change, not all at once, but thread by thread, under the steady pressure of consistency, accountability, and a public that isn't dazzled by theatrics anymore. And Desi points out the mismatch between the booming rhetoric and the fading novelty. What once shocked us now barely even startles.
This is the perfect time for President Trump to meet the moment with his famous deal-making skills and master negotiating to end this shutdown.
President Donald Trump currently on his way to Asia for a high-stakes tour of the region.
Okay. Government will be here when you get back, maybe.
What used to dominate now has to compete with cat videos and viral scandals that burn hotter and faster. The spotlight isn't anyone's by default anymore. It has to be earned every single day, and even then it flickers. Anna points out that the whole mythology depends on being the loudest voice in every room, but the rooms are multiplying and the audiences are splitting up. You can't control a single narrative when everyone's having 1,000 separate conversations at once. The sharpest part of the exposure comes when they both circle back to accountability. Not the performative social media apology kind, but the slow, stubborn, institutional kind that doesn't care about branding, moves at a glacial pace, and is completely indifferent to spectacle.
It's disrespectful, it is frankly disgusting, and it is outrageous. Many Catholics, people of faith who actually do believe in God and believe in the rituals of the church, not the people who wear crosses just for the sake of wearing crosses. People who actually believe in that are bereft over the death of Francis.
Desi cracks jokes about how no amount of bluster can ever outshout paper trails, and no volume can intimidate archival footage. The past just keeps sitting there, patiently existing no matter how many times it's declared irrelevant, like a receipts folder you never delete. And that patience matters to the long memory of voters. They might laugh at the jokes, but they still carry the consequences in their daily lives. Exposure without context is just entertainment, but exposure with context hits differently. becomes something heavier, something that sticks. What makes this takedown so satisfying isn't cruelty, it's inevitability. The sense that this unraveling was always baked into a persona built on constant escalation. You can only keep raising the stakes so many times before there's nowhere left to go but down. And Desi leans into that perfectly, timing every moment to show how every attempt to reclaim dominance now just highlights the very weaknesses it's supposed to hide.
Spoken like a guy who does not know the order of numbers. Meanwhile, back at home on this night before Halloween, we're still dealing with the government shutdown. And it's been the same story for a month now. Democrats versus Republicans, and things are only getting more tense.
The louder the reaction, the more it shows that something actually landed. The angrier the denial, the clearer the discomfort underneath. Anna adds that power is at its weakest when it has to keep reminding everyone how powerful it is. Real influence doesn't need constant announcements. The urge to do so is usually the first sign it's slipping. By the time the exposure gets to the later stages, the person at the center starts to feel less like an untouchable giant and more like a series of overlapping projections slowly drifting out of sync. The image can't keep up with reality. The legend trips over the evidence, and the whole performance starts buckling under the weight of its own exaggeration.
The most solemn times in the Catholic Church when they are in the process of selecting a new pope. And so all of those devout Catholics that voted for Donald Trump because they thought for some reason he was a better representation of faith than other folks, I think you need to ask yourself some questions, and I think you need to ask.
Desi turns that strain into a punchline that practically writes itself. The self-proclaimed king of disruption now getting disrupted by fact checks and late-night comedians, visibly frustrated that chaos isn't following his script anymore. Anna takes a quieter, almost melancholy approach, framing it as a cautionary tale about what happens when personality replaces policy, when volume stands in for substance, and when constant spectacle loses all its shock value. The truth they reveal doesn't land in one dramatic blow. It builds, it settles, it lingers long after the noise fades. It's the realization that the emperor has been obsessing over his wardrobe for so long that no one even bothered to look, until now. And when people finally step back from all the wreckage of narrative and spectacle, what's left is striking in its sheer ordinariness.
President, the ultimate castle for the prettiest princess. Leave it to Trump to pit castles against each other. I don't want to make it a competition, but if it is, I win. He was so excited for this trip, but the ride there got a little...
A political figure, bound by the same limits as everyone else, subject to the same scrutiny, and vulnerable to the same erosion that time and record impose on every reputation, no matter how loud it once was. Desi leaves the audience with that lingering taste of irony, the kind that sticks in your mouth, while Anna hits with the weight of consequence, a reminder that democracy doesn't run on catchphrases and accountability doesn't run on applause. Together, without ever raising their voices, they do something far more unsettling than any viral outburst. They make the spectacle feel finite, the myth feel tired, and the future of that brand feel less like an unstoppable force and more like a long, noisy argument with gravity. And unlike slogans, gravity never loses.